Hello and welcome to We Can Learn to Learn. My name is Mina Roustayi and I'm an integrative learning specialist who will be presenting you with 3 videos on my e-learning page that's also going to be available on YouTube as well as my website. In these 3 videos, I'm presenting you with a foundational information that allows us to realize that we can learn to grow our ability to learn within ourselves at home. It can start at home with our families and with our friends, because research in neuroscience has shown us that we need to create cues of safety, and that those cues of safety enable us to become resilient learners and the best version of ourselves. During this time of rapid change and information explosion, we need to have the learning skills available to us. And yet there are factors that may be challenging us and actually hindering ourselves physiologically from reaching the higher parts of our brains where we have the skills for learning. So I'm going to present to you some slides to provide a context and information necessary so that you can develop your own manual for learning. Because once we learn about our learning circuits, then we can have greater control to create our best version, to advocate for ourselves, and to create cues of safety that enable us to have a sense of wellness that is then more conducive to our ability to learn. So we can learn to grow our ability to learn within ourselves, and it's a bottom-up experience. You can see that we're shown the heart, the lungs, and things are flowering from inside and going up to the brain. But in our mind-centric world, we tend to think that everything is in the brain, that the mind controls everything else. Whereas in reality, 80% of the information comes from our body and then gets processed in our brain in terms of safety and danger. And then that creates the factors that determine whether we're going to be in survival mode or whether we feel safe enough to be able to access our learning. Of course, there are exceptions, but in general, we need to realize that we are biological beings. And by creating mind-body awareness, we start looking at our feelings and behaviors in a different way, because we learn that there is this unconscious surveillance systems 24/7 that is making sure that we are safe. And if it detects danger, or if it's been conditioned to always feel danger, then that is going to mobilize certain behaviors, adaptive behaviors that may not serve us in schools, at work, with our family, and certainly with learning. So what can we do about that? How can we change that? Because it is possible to change it with all the science and information that we have, thanks to the polyvagal theory of Dr. Steve Porges and the work that Deb Dana has done to disseminate this information so that we can apply it in our daily lives. And I hope that you have the ability to use this information that I'm presenting you, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, to whet your appetite and to realize that the first step is really awareness. So the polyvagal theory proposes that our sense of safety is intricately involved with our ability to connect socially. And that social connection is a biological imperative. That when we feel, oh, I'm better on my own, I really don't want to speak to anybody, that there's nothing wrong with that. The only question is, do you realize whether you are in survival mode and whether that sense of being by myself is serving you in your ability to feel well, to feel connected, to grow, and to learn? Because we, as biological creatures, it's connection, social connection is a biological imperative. And safety is also a biological imperative, and critical to sensing whether we are or are not in connection or in danger is the vagus nerve and the 12 cranial nerves that come from the base of our skull in our brainstem. And the vagus nerve is one of the 12 cranial nerves. Most of them populate our face, around our mouth, around our eyes, control our sense of smell, our hearing, our mastication, our jaws. And the vagus nerve is the one that goes into our heart, our lungs, our stomach, and our digestive system. So I think it's not far-fetched to realize that when we are stressed, it's very hard to pay attention, to concentrate, and that our stomach ties into knots, or that our heart palpitates, or that our breathing may be too rapid or too slow, or that we feel numb. These are all part of the vagus nerve that is a very, very long nerve that winds and connects all these different organs, and that is in communication with the other 11 nerves that populate our face. And the reason those nerves are important is because we communicate our intention, whether we are friendly or whether we're about to attack, through the way we look, through the position of our mouth. And these are some of the cues of safety that we communicate to each other. So it's not just about ourselves, but it's also about how other people relate to us that creates a sense of safety, and it can affect our mood. We're always in a dance with our environment. So the polyvagal theory enables us to look at ourselves through a lens, a very useful lens, to bring awareness as to where we are at. What is our context? And do we have any choices? These choices are part of the critical factors that determine whether we can thrive and be relaxed and playful, or we are in survival mode. And these factors also send cues to our nervous system automatically below our awareness to generate mental, physical, and emotional behaviors, whether we are in safety and we are in a position to learn and connect, or in danger, where we go into protection and disconnect, or we need to go into hiding or disappearing because of extreme life threat, which is a normal reaction that anybody would have. So I've created this little model where we have an attachment figure, because attachment to a parental figure or caregiver is very important in utero, as well as in the first years of our lives, because as children, we depend on caregivers. And some of us are very fortunate to have nurturing environments, to feel connected and supported when we are happy, or when we have snafus, or when we feel discouraged. And it creates a sense of ventral vagal state that is represented by the green figure that is sitting on top of the shoulders of this attachment figure, which is kind of the risky, but also playful. And this figure is probably available to learning, to being flexible. Now, if an individual has had adverse childhood experiences, chronic stress, then their system may be mostly in sympathetic mode, in a sympathetic state that is represented by the yellow figurine that you can see is in a precarious situation. It's not feeling grounded. It's slip sliding down and is barely held. And who knows what's going to happen next. And this individual may be mobilized with tremendous energy to make sure that it is feeling safe through either fighting away the danger or running away from the danger. And there are also accompanying emotions and feelings and other behaviors that we're going to be discussing in the next slide. Now, if all of this doesn't help, it can serve to deplete an individual. It costs energy. And when this energy is depleted and it's chronic, then the individual figure will go into the dorsal vagal state, which is represented by the red figurine. It's a state of collapse. And in this final slide, I'm presenting you with a little bit more information of the automatic feelings that we have, the automatic physiological state and behaviors that we have depending on which state we're in. And that's why it's so important that we recognize and learn about the circuitry so that we can not just give into it, but recognize it and hit the pause button and not be reactive, except of course if we're in ventral state. And by the way, we are biologically programmed towards wellness, except if we are held back by these survival states of the sympathetic state that is activated by danger, tremendous energy of fighting or running away. Individuals may be angry, may be enraged, may be prone to hitting, or just extremely irritable. They may feel anxiety, and they may just wake up with anxiety. By the way, it can also interfere with sleep most of the time, digestion, and certainly affects our ability to learn. We have limited concentration, if any at all. We can't really remember things that we read. And it's hard to pay attention, sit still, because we're constantly thinking. We're preoccupied. We feel a sense of overwhelm, physical discomfort. Our stomachs may be in a knot. Our heart may be beating way too rapidly. We may be breathing way too shallow, or our breathing may be very, very rapid. And we don't really have the bandwidth to socialize. Because in a survival mode, if we take too much time, then we could have been, in millions of years ago, some animals' lunch. And that's still in our brain, believe it or not. And in the next slide, we're going to be talking about that. So if all of this doesn't work and we're still not safe and we feel just depleted, or the life threat is still present in our lives, then we may go into immobilization. We feel drained, low energy, if any energy at all. We may feel numb, in a state of collapse. And then there are feelings of discouragement, distrust, hopelessness, helplessness, and dissociation, and just feeling embarrassed that we're not good enough, that there is shame in there. And all of these feelings cost us energy that takes away from the quality of life and our ability to learn. But fear not, this is not irreversible, because there are many thousands of examples of individuals who were able to reverse this by cultivating experiences that enable them to change their narrative, change their story, and realize that these are states that are not the sum total of them, that they can actually be in the ventral vagal state and benefit from the ventral energy that enables us to be curious and open to learning, to play and prioritize. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk about the evolutionary background of this and how we create narratives that then turn into belief systems. And in video 3, we're going to talk about how we lose control of our emotions, what happens in our brain, how that affects our learning, and then what is some of the ways that we can learn to move out of this and create a sense of wellness, well-being, growth, and recovery, and resilience as embodied lifelong learners. I hope you join me in the next 2 videos as well. Thank you so much for listening.